One word description, crisp. This is a very sharp dive computer with very clear and crisp display. Hi all of you awesome scuba divers out there, welcome to the Scuba Diver Magazine channel, your favourite place for the latest scuba diving news and gear reviews. Yes, Suunto have released their latest range of dive computers, the Nautic. So the Nautic is a large colour screen dive computer with a rechargeable battery, wireless air integration and some pretty smart bungee strap options. One of its biggest party tricks though is inboard GPS and dive tracking, meaning that it can actually track your dive profile not just in 2 dimensions using the depth sensor, but in 3 dimensions, which is very clever. But first, let's see the box that it comes in and what comes with it. This is how it arrives in a pretty cool EVA case, a pretty standard sleeve on the outside, just the usual information on that. Suunto on the top, a little grab handle and a zippered opening. Inside the box, we have the elasticated strap. So that's more of a traditional watch. I say watch style. It is more sort of Velcro instead of the bungee cable. You also have 2 small black boxes. This one's a little heavier. I imagine this is a book of words. Yeah, this looks like a user manual. You're covered, product safety regulatory information, some light bedtime reading. Make it yours, set up your strap for any dive adventure. Just information on how to thread the straps properly. And a get started quick start guide, I imagine. Yeah, just a quick start guide. You also have a larger box with a screen protector on it, so you can install that, keep it scratch resistant. Then we have the computer itself. Obviously, we'll take a closer look at that in a second if I can get it out of the box. You also have more bungee with the Suunto logo on it, bungee cable, and a box with a recharging cable, USB-C recharging cable, a plastic bag with 2 pins in it, spring pins, I imagine for the elastomer strap. Another plastic bag with 4 pins in it, I imagine they're for the bungee strap mount or something. I'll find out in a second. And the cradle section for the bungee mount. The internal section does come out if you want to repurpose the box for anything. But yeah, let's take a closer look at the computer itself and assemble some of these straps. Measuring 26 by 101 by 66 millimeters, the body is made from glass fiber reinforced polyamide that has a nice lightweight but a sturdy feel to it. It's got a good strong feel. It feels like it's full, if that makes sense. I've held some dive computers where they feel a little bit empty, whereas this one feels good and strong. The main display is Panda glass, which is a high-strength aluminosilicate cover glass that's used as a cheaper alternative to Corning Gorilla Glass on things like phones, tablets and other displays. It's said to be not quite as strong as Gorilla Glass, but a lot cheaper, so you're saving money there. A 4-button user interface has 2 proud buttons on each side. Each button has some ridges on the top for extra grip, and they're very easy to find and use with gloves. There's a setting on the inside of the computer where you can select whether the upper or the lower section of the computer is where those batteries are located, depending on which arm you wear it on and kind of where you want the batteries on, but you do have to bear in mind which side the torch is on. I'll get to that in a second. On that side, you have a USB magnetic fitting where you recharge the battery. And next to that is a little flashlight, which is a pretty darn bright light for a dive computer. Now, I wouldn't use it for my entire dive to like do a night dive or anything, but to find something in the dark, it's quite bright and it's got a decent beam angle. I imagine it eats up quite a bit of the battery, but it's always nice to have an extra backup light. The underside has 4 attachment loops that have an internal diameter of around 4mm molded directly into the body, and this is where you're attaching the different strap options. Inside is a rechargeable lithium-ion battery with a battery life upwards of 120 hours. That number is obviously with the lowest brightness, the GPS turned off and everything set as low as possible. So with like regular use, you're using the GPS, you're using wireless air transmitters, all that kind of stuff, you're probably looking closer to 80 hours of dive time on a single charge. But that's still impressive. And the beauty of rechargeable batteries is that they can be topped up during your surface interval, so you're less likely to run out of battery. Another big deal inside is the GPS. The Nautic can log your location on the surface to map entry and exit points, and the Nautic also benefits from Suunto's underwater route mapping, which is a sensor fusion system that lets the Nautic record your actual path underwater and then display it as a 3-dimensional detailed track in the Suunto app after the dive. The watch uses GPS at the surface together with an accelerometer, a gyroscope and the magnetometer, and of course the pressure sensor to reconstruct where you swum beneath the surface based on your depth, your heading, the movement data processed by a machine learning trained algorithm. The route itself isn't shown live on the dive computer or anything, but it is synced to your phone afterwards, where it appears as a map alongside the depth and the time, letting you review your dive, share it, or follow similar lines on future dives. This gives you much richer post-dive logs than just a simple entry-exit GPS point, and makes it easier to explore or brief others on specific underwater routes, such as reef contours, wreck circuits, or navigation exercises. A digital compass helps you navigate underwater, and it's a very clear and crisp compass. You can, of course, set a heading, and it will hold that bearing, show you the bearing, and show you which way to go, and it's reciprocal heading as well, which is quite nice, and it's a very good responsive compass. It's nice and crisp. You're not sat there waiting for it to catch up. Air, nitrox and trimix from 5% oxygen all the way up to 100%, and from 0 to 95% helium. And when you're setting up gases, you can create a whole gas table of active, enabled and disabled gases, so that you can set up exactly what you're diving with, including the cylinder size, and pair specific transmitters to specific gases. So for complicated mixed gas diving, you can get everything organized right on the computer, including like the most common blends that you tend to use, but you may not be using on this particular dive. But of course you don't want to have to delete it and then set it up later. So you can just deactivate that gas mix and then reactivate it the next time you're using it, which is quite smart. Diving is done with a 𝐵𝐵 algorithm on this Suunto with built-in gradient factors. The dive screen is nice and clean, with your essentials taking up 2/3 of the screen, and you have some control over the right hand side where you can create and organize several tiles. You can choose between one large tile which has some big information such as a compass or a stopwatch, or you can have a double tile with 2 smaller information squares, and you can set up multiple tiles in whatever order you prefer, and you can then cycle through that whilst you're on the dive for some customization. The 38mm wide elastic textile strap uses those 4 black pins that I was talking about to plug in the holes in the body, and the 2 metal spring pins to loop a slightly elastic Velcro strap. It does stretch, but it's not a stretchy strap. There's Velcro on both ends, and it's very quick and easy to adjust for different sleeve thicknesses, and it's going to grip because of that elastication. And when your wetsuit or your dry suit starts to compress, that elastication is going to help to grip onto it. But yeah, very quick and easy to adjust. Again, easily with gloves. The bungee strap option is very clever. It looks quite complicated when you see it in images, but it gives you some real quick adjust lengths. The magic comes from this extra fitting on the other side and a pair of webbing pull tabs. At full length, you have plenty of room to slip the computer over things like dry glove rings, but then you pull on one of the tabs and then loop it over the fitting itself, and if you need to, you can loop the second one over to really clamp it down. The pull tabs can be unthreaded and rethreaded wherever you need it. If you need extra long bungee or you need to replace it over time, you don't have to worry because you can reuse the pull tabs. If that's all too complicated for you, you can still old school it with simple loops. You still have those 4 attachment points, so it's really up to you. It does make it a little bit fiddly to mount a dive knife if you mount it onto the strap, but if you've got the elastic fabric style one, that one should be a little bit easier, and you'll probably be able to figure something out given enough persistence. But yeah, it's just something a little bit different. The Nautic will talk to your smartphone through Bluetooth and the Suunto app, where you can of course log all of your dives and update the firmware, as well as offline maps onto the screen of the computer itself. It can also talk to a Suunto heart rate monitor belt, which is an optional extra. I don't know if it will affect your dive profile, if anything, if you're using it during the dive, but if you want to log your heart rate during the dive, you have that option. You can also pair the Nautic with up to 5 wireless tank pods and link them to specific gases for accurate gas management. The Nautic has several features that are specifically aimed at side mount divers. On top of the dual display, where it shows both tank pressures at the same time, you can set the Nautic to alert you when one cylinder drops by a certain amount compared to the other, to tell you to switch sides to keep them even. Audible and vibration alerts. You can pick and choose one or the other, both or neither, depending on what works for you and how stealthy you want to be in the water. And some alerts you can actually choose how they display on your screen, whether they're a bit more severe or more of an information or would you like to know. Navigating the Nautic is very simple. The 2 arrow buttons, the one on the top, one on the bottom, they each have a little arrow on it. Those are typically your up and down buttons to cycle through options, whilst the other 2 are select and back. In the menus, the Nautic does a pretty good job of guiding you sort of what function each button has. It does have a small icon on the screen on some screens, but until you get the hang of each button, it can save a missed press. And the overall display is a very clean and modern display. You know that you've saved something when the whole screen turns green, you get a tick, and the whole dive screen is a great mixture of pure data for people who just want to know the actual figures, and diagrams that give you a visual representation of what you need to do or what you shouldn't do. So who's the Nautic for? The Nautic is the perfect do-everything dive computer. It will be a perfect first dive computer and on the wrist of a technical diver as well. It's got every feature from your first steps underwater to really technical diving. The price tag of £625, $700 or €700 with the bungee strap options. There are some regional variations in the price for the fabric strap, so of course have a look around, and you can often buy it with a tank pod as well for a reduced cost, so do keep an eye out for deals. But that price point puts it at a fairly reasonable price for a large color screen computer with GPS. It's not a cheap dive computer, but it could be a lot more expensive for all of the bells and whistles that it has inside, and this is the definition of a one and only dive computer. If you buy this as your first ever dive computer, it will probably be the only dive computer that you ever need. I've always liked Suunto computers myself. And now that they're using a Bielmann algorithm, they're more in line with other computers. It used to be the thing online where, because they had the Suunto RGBM, it was different from computers that were using a Bielmann. So people thought, I might just stick with, well, my buddy's using a Bielmann, I'll stick with that. But now Suunto are coming a bit more in line with those Bielmanns, so they're making them more accessible for more divers. The Nautic is really the perfect combination of a clean display, clean user interface and all of the diving features that you'll ever need, but you don't have to have them all turned on, obviously. The one that stands out from the rest of the dive computer range available right now is not only the GPS, which in itself is quite unique, but the underwater route mapping, which is very, very clever. It's quite a rare feature now. Things that I didn't like: it doesn't turn itself off. It does go into like a sleep mode after a while, where it displays the time, the date, and the battery level, but I'd kind of rather it just turn the screen off entirely to save battery. You can turn the computer off yourself if you go into the control panel and then scroll down to the bottom of the menu, and then you confirm that yes, you actually do really want to turn that dive computer off. I get that the battery life is good, but I'd still want to optimize that, and after like 5-10 minutes of not using it, not pressing any buttons, I just want the screen to, you know, go to sleep. And that was about it really that I didn't like. The straps, you know, they're a little bit fiddly to thread, but most straps are, and you do get instructions with it, which is quite nice. And of course, yeah, you only have to do it once. Everything else was, yeah, very pleasant. For the long-term test, of course, check out our magazine. You can find a link to our magazine in the description, and subscribe to the channel here on YouTube for more unboxings. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.